You're listening to Power Talk, Berkeley Electric Cooperative's official broadcast about the cooperative, our communities, and ways to use energy wisely. And now, let's join our hosts for today's episode. Good morning and welcome to Power Talk. I am Micah Ponce, the Communications and Media Specialist here at Berkeley Electric Cooperative. And I am joined today by Miss Libby Road, the Director of Marketing and Communications.
Good morning, Micah.
Good morning. And we always like to invite a special guest because otherwise Libby and I would be just really boring. What are we talking about today? I don't know.
Random trivia.
What did you do this weekend? So to avoid all of that, we've brought in Mr. Tim Swicord, the Manager of Energy Services.
Good morning, Micah. Good morning, Libby.
Welcome.
Welcome. Well, Tim, you've been on the show. Might have been a minute since you've been here. So why don't you remind your listeners and our listeners and everybody who just might be listening a little bit about your background.
So I have a background in engineering. I spent the 28 years working for a power producer, retired, came to work at Berkeley. Been here for about 6 years. Manage the water heater programs, the surge guard program. I do solar consulting. I do all of the commercial energy audits, and also do a number of other things, including EV chargers, commercial lighting, and just whatever else is needed.
Solar?
I did say solar.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Well, actually, the most important thing is that, we want to make sure that we mention the fact that you're a part of our energy services team. And this month has sort of been a theme that y'all are superheroes, super-powered team of energy services people, and somehow we landed in the DC universe. So, who's your going to be your
Eddie's
alter
Batman.
ego? Yep.
Josh is Robin.
We got Loretta. She's going to be Wonder Woman.
I'm
Who do you want to be?
Superman.
Oh,
Okay,
there you go.
okay.
All right.
And it's really because I just can't lie. All the other stuff, somebody else.
No super speed supervision.
No, none of that.
Yeah.
Well, so Tim, as we've established, you're part of our team of energy experts. And since Berkeley Electric's a not-for-profit utility, we offer a multitude of services to help our members manage their energy usage and therefore their bills and their costs. Whether that's our smart thermostat program or energy audits or on-bill financing for energy efficiency upgrades. This level of expertise definitely comes in handy when a member is considering purchasing an electric vehicle, or EV for short. So, Tim, EVs have certainly grown in popularity in the past decade. You see them on the roads more and more because more and more folks are making the switch. About how many BEC members would you estimate are EV owners these
So
days?
we think we have between 250 and 300. Some of that information has come from members that have reached out to us about chargers, and we try to log that whenever somebody does call in and they state that they have an EV. We also got some data from the Highway Department, Department of Transportation, actually, about EVs registered in our service territory under the zip code. We don't have the addresses, but we have the quantity.
Yeah.
And so it's somewhere between 250 and 300 is what we estimate. We are looking at a few tools that can look at our use data on an account-by-account basis that they claim can predict with fairly certain accuracy that the homes that have EVs plugged in.
Yeah. So Berkeley Electric serves portions of the Tri-County. Some people think because of our name we serve just Berkeley County, but it's portions of Berkeley, Charleston, and Dorchester. And we serve currently about 130,000 accounts. So 300 on 130,000 is not a huge amount.
Not a lot. Well, I will speak anecdotally is that, not too long ago, we finished up with our annual meeting of members, and I had the pleasure of working all 4 days at all 4 locations. And I will say that between this year and last year, I definitely noticed an uptick in the number of hybrids and EVs that came through our drive-through annual meeting.
Yeah.
No hard numbers or anything else like that, but it was noticeable enough that, it caught my attention that, if in case you haven't been near an EV, they have a particular sound when they drive by.
Yeah,
and
which is not much.
Yeah, not much. But
or lack of sound.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a high-pitched whine that's sort of
Ah.
associated with the electric motor that when they go by. And it caught your attention, and so I noticed there was a lot more hybrids as well as the few EVs going through there of all stripes. Teslas, Rivians, Honda CR-Vs, I mean, you name it. They had a bunch of them.
Yeah.
And we're even tossing around the idea of, sending out communication to our members and offering some type of incentive or prize for them to identify whether or not they have an EV, and whether or not they have a level 2 charger.
Yeah.
Our engineering folks are very interested in knowing where those chargers are, because over time they could impact our service territory and, may need to do some upgrades based on that.
Sure.
And way back in the day, when all this got started back in 2012, and I remember that date because that's when we bought our EV that we had for a long time here at the co-op. It was a Nissan Leaf. It was one of the first new wave of the production EVs that were out there. And one of the main reasons that we did buy it is so we could study the charging characteristics and how it would affect transformers and things like that. Because, if we've got a subdivision that's already set up for,
This amount of power
this
usage.
amount of power usage based on, switches and transformers and circuits and everything that we've got already set up, if all of a sudden everybody in there starts buying an EV and adding level 2 chargers,
Charging them all at the same time.
That's definitely going to affect the load characteristics for that subdivision. And then we're going to have to go back in and change out circuits, change out transformers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it does take planning and it does take research. So that's something that the co-op is really, like I said, since 2012 has been on our mind in terms of making sure that we keep up with the technology as it emerges.
And making sure we have the infrastructure to support what our members are using is important, because that reliability is one of our number one missions here at the co-op. So we're not getting in your business. We're not just being nosy to find out whether you've got an EV or not. It's to make sure we can deliver reliable power to all of our members.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's the main focus, is trying to figure that out so that we don't fall short somewhere and it's a surprise.
Yeah.
And I mean, when it comes to EVs, it is still a new technology for the most part. Not everybody has them, as you can see by the relatively small number of folks that we have here in our system. And I think a lot of that's because there's uncertainty for EVs. There's going to be uncertainty surrounding any new technology. But Berkeley Electric, we want to be your source for information and reliable power. So one of the things that we do is we have a tool on our website that will help members decide if they want to, or that an EV might fit their lifestyle, I should say. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what that tool is and what it can do?
So the tool we're using is called Choose EV, and we partner with another company to provide that information. And basically what they do is they do market research. They determine which vehicles are available in the models, the specs on the models. And what that does is it compares it to the gas-powered vehicles. And so you can go in on our site, you can plug in the car you're thinking about buying, compare the comparable to that with the EV, put in the price of the gas, and our rate is built in, and it will tell you the difference in the charging rate and the cost of operation. You put in how many miles a year you drive, and it will kind of predict, based on what you're putting in, how much you would save on energy or gas, or in
total
this
cost
case,
of ownership.
over time. And so that's very helpful. Another thing that site does is it kind of points you in the direction for any federal tax credits that may be available. Some models qualify for up to a $7,500 tax credit for a new one. Some, as for used ones, some as high as $4,000. But you need to check that out to be sure that the model you're looking at will qualify, because some do not.
And those are tax rebates, right? So
they are tax credits.
Tax credits. So
they are not rebatable. So if you don't have the tax liability to claim it, you can't get it. So let's say you're on Social Security and you're not paying federal taxes at all.
Right.
You just wouldn't qualify no matter what vehicle you bought.
Correct.
So you have to have a taxable income.
Yeah.
So it might not be great for retirees.
who aren't working.
But folks that take distributions out of a 401k or some other type of individual retirement account that they do pay taxes on could certainly qualify. But I always tell everyone, if there's any doubt at all, check with your tax consultant, and they can advise you of what your situation is.
Yeah.
In addition to that, we have a list of EV chargers that you can look at and get information on. We have a public charging map, so that so let's say you live in Somerville and you want to know, well, if I bought an EV, where could I charge my vehicle? You can just click on that map and it will tell you all the publicly available chargers in your area.
Well, I think one of the things that, speaking of that, because I remember when we first had our Nissan Leaf, it was one of the newer ones, new technology. I think at the time it only had a range of like 100 miles. So I remember when I would take it out to go, run around the service territory, I would literally like get on Google Maps first, and I'd be like plotting out my route, be like, okay, it's 20 miles to here, and then it's, going to be 20 miles back, and it's going to be 15 miles over here. Am I going to have enough charge to make it all the way around?
And then that range anxiety kicks in.
And then the range anxiety kicks in. As a matter of fact, one time I was down by Northwoods Mall and I got stuck in a traffic jam.
Oh, no.
And it's like, oh my. And of course, it was summertime, so you have the air conditioning running, and that, of course, uses more electricity. So I had to cut off the AC, roll down the windows, and just suck in all kinds of exhaust fumes for, 20 minutes while this traffic jam was trying to clear. And then I'm just praying that I have enough energy to wheel my way all the way back up.
Well, I drove that Leaf down to Kirkman Broadcasting's office on Savannah Highway.
Oh, no.
And it said we had 80 miles when we left. And we got about halfway back, and it was down to about 10, and I was about to die. So, fortunately, we made it.
Right.
And I decided then that.
Well, the good thing is the technology has improved immeasurably since 2012. The range on a lot of these vehicles is now 200 to 300 miles.
Right.
They have regenerative braking. So, when you apply the brakes, it sort of recaptures a little bit of that energy.
Yeah.
So, the stop and go driving is actually better for an electric vehicle than just straight up going down the highway, 70 miles an hour for, 300 miles or something like that.
That's correct.
So, for a daily driver, makes a really good idea.
Yeah.
Most people, I think the statistic is most people don't drive more than 50 miles a day in their daily commute. So if you're just talking about a daily driver and you've got a range of 300 miles, you can basically go all week before you have to charge. And in terms of comparing, one of the advantages is if you compare $3 a gallon for, your gas versus $3 to charge your car, and you can go 3 or 4 days or an entire week off of that $3.
Yeah.
There are situations where EVs do make sense.
Yeah.
And they really do, and so, someone who never goes out of town, an EV is perfect. Folks that go out of town need to be a little more savvy with technology, so they can figure out where they're going to get their charge as they move along. But the chargers are going up everywhere.
They are.
Speaking of chargers, we have a dual head 15.4 kW level 2 charger here at the Moncks Corner office. It's free of charge. When we opened this office, nobody used it for a while, but people have found it. It's on the map, and pretty much every day there's somebody plugged into it.
And if he's listening, there is one gentleman that I have noticed. He makes the most of his time while he comes to the charger. He backs up. He pops the hatchback. He sets up a TV, brings out a lawn chair, and watches a movie while his car charges.
Wow.
So I've seen him out there plenty of times. So he's making the most of it.
And so in addition to the one here at our Moncks Corner office, we also have a dual head charger. It's a 7.6 kW charger at our Johns Island office. And it sees some use too, but it's a little slower charger because it's a little older. So at some point maybe we'll upgrade it, but it is also free to the community.
Speaking of charging speed, we're talking, I think most people, if you're talking about residential chargers, you're going to have what they call as a level 2 charger. approximately how long does it take, I guess, to charge a full tank of gas or energy?
A full battery.
Yeah. How long
So
does it
that's going to vary by vehicle.
Right.
And, and a lot of that information is available via a link on our site. But general rule is, 12 to 60 miles of range per hour of charge. And that's based on a couple of factors. One is, what size is your charger?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the 7.6 at Johns Island is half as fast as the 15.4 here at our office. So, that's part of that range. And level 2s go up to 19. The other thing is what can your car take?
Right.
Some of the older vehicles will only take 8 or 9, so it's having a 15 kW charger may not make sense. But the Ford Lightning will take 19.2.
Mm-hmm.
So it really just depends on the size of the charger and what your vehicle will take for the level 2. For level 3, which is also called the DC fast charge, you can get anywhere from 200 to 400 miles of charge per hour. And that, again, is dependent upon mostly the charger.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a 160 kW charger, you're probably closer to the 200 miles per hour. Whereas if you have a 1,000 kW charger, you're probably closer to the 400 or 500 mile range.
And you mentioned the chargers that we have here at the co-op. We've also been working with different municipalities around our service territory to help expand the charger network. Where are some of the places that we've installed or help different towns and cities?
So we have we have a program that for our municipalities, and we will provide up to $25,000 per year for a single municipality to help produce and install charging infrastructure. Our first project was a project at Goose Creek's office, and it is I believe it's a free charger, but I'm not positive of that. And it was a 15.4 kW charger. I think we gave around $10,000 for that one. Since then, we've partnered with the city of Seabrook, if you will. They've got a couple of chargers out there, and we've also done the same thing with Kiowa. So, I think that's about it for now. And we are looking at, the next round, which will be next year.
And then, beyond municipalities, we've worked with some commercial accounts as well. Is that correct?
We do. We work with commercial accounts. Our first commercial account was McElveen GMC. They were trying to qualify for the electric Hummer, and they needed to put in specific charging for that. They called us up, and we went out and looked at their site, looked where power would be available, where would be the most convenient place for them to put it, what their cost would be. Because, we're installing a lot of equipment, so there's going to be some minimum costs that they're going to have, whether they use the charger or not, based on the transformers and that type stuff. In this case, they decided to put it up next to their shop, so there was some underground boring that they had to do. But that charger's in service. It's available to the public, but it's got a paywall, so you would have to pay for it. We also have worked with Berkeley Ford. Initially, Berkeley Ford was trying to follow the Ford guidelines, and they were putting some pretty large chargers in. And, then we had some economic situations going on, and they just put a pause on it. And now they're back at it. Ford has relaxed their requirements, and they're getting ready to put in 2 19.2 kW chargers out front of the building and a 160 kW level 3 charger, DC fast charger, on the side of the building.
Oh, well, it sounds like we've been out there, trying to spread the gospel as much as we can and working with folks. But if you are just now tuning in, we are a little bit halfway past the middle part of the show, and we're talking all about EVs with Mr. Tim Swicord, the manager of energy services here at Berkeley Electric. So yeah, Tim, we have all kinds of tools. If this is your interest level, we get that some people are, going to stay gasoline, as long as they can, and that's great. So we've got an educational website on our website that folks can compare models. We've worked with some of our businesses in the area for them to install chargers. We've installed them at our own offices, and we've worked with municipalities to try to
help support them if they are looking to install chargers. Another service that we provide is we recently expanded our on-bill financing program. In the past, it's just been for energy efficiency upgrades to a home, but now it includes residential electric vehicle chargers. Tim, how does this new residential EV loan program work?
So we have a couple of partners. The partners are Boss Energy and Shine Construction, and they do the installation for us. And so basically it's a loan program, just like our Home Advantage loan. You have to have good credit, that kind of thing. And basically we will loan you up to $10,000 to install your charger. You will get quotes from our two partners, and whatever that is, we'll do up to 5 years at 5% APR. And so basically we only just put a lien on the equipment. So, over the period when you've paid it off, it's your equipment. And you can, enjoy charging at home at your convenience.
Sure.
One other thing that we note on that is if you are going to charge your car at home and you install a level 2 charger, depending on the cost, there is a tax credit available for residential car chargers, and it's 30% of the cost of the charger up to $1,000. So it's not a guaranteed $1,000. If the charger and the installation is $2,000, 30% of that $600. So you're only going to get a $600 credit. So it is ratcheted based on that percentage.
And is there just off the top of your head, is there an average cost for a home charger?
So it can range, and it really depends on what you have at your home in terms of your breaker panel, where it's located, that kind of thing. We've had one person install one, and it was completed last week, and it was $1,600, and that included the charger, labor, materials, everything. And that would be what we would call a simple installation. In other words, the charger location was very close to the panel, and the panel had the capacity to cover it. Some homes, the panel's a little further away, so there's a good bit more wiring and cabling that needs to be done, so the cost will be a little higher. In other cases, unfortunately, some homes don't have a large enough service to support it, so they would need to upgrade their service, and that's when you get into the the higher costs.
Right. So that's one of the things that folks need to take into account when you're talking about buying an EV. You also have to add in that a little bit of extra money for having a level 2 charger at your home.
I don't know. My niece has one of the EV Ford Mustangs, and she charges hers by just running a
drop
extension cord.
Yep. You can do it.
What's the pros and cons of that?
So the extension cord idea, that's a level 1 charger.
Yeah.
And you're looking at 1 mile, 2 miles per hour of charging. So it's really slow.
It'd be like an every other day car.
But, if you don't drive that much, it's kind of like charging up a golf cart. If you're just going to ride around the neighborhood or go to the grocery store, you can do that. Just know that you're not going to go on very many long trips unless you can get it charged somewhere else.
Yeah, when we first had the Nissan Leaf, they basically were just saying, that looks like an overgrown golf cart. But that is an overgrown golf cart that when you push the accelerator to the floor, it pushes you back into your seat.
Oh, yes.
They have high torque.
They have high torque, high performance engines, I guess you would say, because all of that energy is put directly into torque. There's no wind up or anything else like that. It's just press it and you go. So they can be sporty little things.
And God bless the Nissan Leaf. Its dearly departed soul. we have cycled it out of the fleet after over 10 years. But we loaned it out to area high schools that had a driver's ed program. I know a lot of high schools have phased that out. But again, the idea being to our next generation of drivers that they could have this experience and learn about this option. And it was a great success for the time we had it.
Yeah. I mean, we got somebody in the family, who's got a relatively young daughter, and he says that, he almost fully expects her to only ever drive electric cars.
Yeah.
That might, be a little bit optimistic. I think, in the next 10 to 15 years, we're probably still going to see plenty of gas vehicles on the road. But yeah, they're definitely making more of a comeback. Or, they're not going to come back. Well, it actually was, because it was a long time ago when they first started electric vehicles.
And Went away and they came
back. Went away and came back with the new battery technologies.
And they've come a long way.
They have.
They have. They really have.
Well, all of this is really dependent on, power and having the power available to charge all these cars. And we've talked a lot about the need for new generation, especially in South Carolina, to keep up with all the growth of people coming in, all the new neighborhoods that we were building, and all the electric vehicles that are coming in. And some people are asking, if we are in need of more generation, why are we promoting electric cars? And I guess that's kind of a fair question. So how do EVs factor into this load? And what can owners do to make sure they're not using more of this precious power during what we call peak demand times?
So I think the theory is, from a combustion standpoint, obviously a lot of the energy we use is still produced using fossil fuels. But more and more we're going to renewables, wind and solar. So theoretically the air emissions are going down for electricity. For cars, they're burning hydrocarbons. So their emissions are pretty much going to be the same. EPA is mandating higher fuel efficiency, which will reduce some emissions. But the push really is to just try to get away from fossil fuels. I don't know that we'll ever get there because, some of the renewables are not reliable all the time. It rains, sun goes down, solar panels don't work.
Wind's not blowing all the time.
Wind doesn't always blow, so you got to have a backstop or folks are going to be unhappy.
And some areas aren't suited to wind. South Carolina, the majority of South Carolina doesn't have a large wind field, or at least not large enough for what they call, to generate power anyway.
Correct. And so one of the ways to mitigate some of the strain on the grid, so to speak, is to just make sure you're charging your car during low peak times. If anybody knows, middle of summer, 3 to 7 p.m., everything's running. Everybody's got an air conditioner trying to cool their house. In the winter, 6 to 9, everybody's getting up, getting ready for work, washing clothes or taking showers. Heat's running, so there's a high demand then. So really the ideal time is the shoulder times, 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, anytime after 11 p.m. all the way up to about 5 a.m. Those are the ideal times. So because system load then is very low. So you can charge at a relatively lower cost if you're on a time of day rate by doing that. And so you can actually save more money doing that than you would charging, on a peak time.
So basically charge it like you charge your cell phone. Hook it up at night and let it charge overnight.
That's right.
Yep.
How much load does an EV charger contribute?
So the older level 2s were about the size of a dryer.
Okay. Clothes dryer.
Clothes dryer. But now the larger ones, you're looking at 2 or 3 dryers.
Okay.
So
there is a difference.
There is.
Mm-hmm.
A dryer is about 4,500 watts, 4.5 kW. So you think about that 19.2 kW charger for the Lightning. That's 4 times.
And how does that compare to, say, other large appliances like a water heater or your HVAC?
So the water heater is, it's 4,500 watts as well.
Okay.
There are some 5,000 watt, but the common ones are 4,500. They have a dual element, but usually only one element's running at a time. So that's 4.5 kW.
Okay.
So your stove is going to pull about the same, but it cycles on and off, so it's not running all the time. Your water heater's not running all the time. So you go take a shower. Let's say you use 2/3 of the water in the tank. It might take 15-20 minutes to reheat that water. So it's not running the full hour.
Yeah.
EV chargers, on the other hand, they're running the full hour for several hours.
Right.
One thing that's interesting, and you don't see it a lot with the level 2s, as the battery starts charging, it heats up. And so like at a level 3, you may get 80% charge rate in the beginning, but as that battery heats up, it knows it can't take that type of charge, so it slows the charge down. So you get the majority of your charge the first few hours, and then it kind of trickles in after that.
And do we have any tools available to help members figure out when off-peak charging should be or anything like that?
So the car itself has, pretty good information in it, and you can set up all your charging through the app in the car. But what is a little more convenient and a little better is an app like OptiWatt. We've partnered with OptiWatt in the past to do a trial, and one of the great things about OptiWatt is once you sync it with your car, you can then sync it with your power provider, and it knows when the optimum times are to charge, and you can actually set it up to charge off peak, and it will just know because of the information that it has when those times are.
That's what I like. Make it easy and make me not have to think about it. Well, folks, there's a lot to think about when it comes to EVs, and hopefully this gave you a little bit of background as to some of the topics that you might need to take under consideration. So for more information, you can go to our website at berkeleyelectric.coop. But thank you for tuning in to Power Talk. This is the official broadcast of your electric cooperative, and you can catch up on past episodes on streaming platforms like Spotify, Apple, and iHeartRadio. And always get a behind-the-scenes look on Berkeley Electric's YouTube channel. So until next time, this is Power Talk, signing off.